Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Out and about on the big old Tiger 1200 again today on a lovely sunny winter's day. Got the old heated seat on though, which is an absolute winner. Anyway, in this video, what I thought I'd do, I've been riding the bike for about a week or so now, so I've got to know the bike quite well. And started to sort of understand what I like and what I don't like about the bike. So in this video, what I'm going to talk to you about are the top 5 things that I love about the Triumph Tiger Explorer 1200. Okay, so to number 5 on my list then of the top 5 things I love about the Tiger 1200. And it's something that struck me immediately I got on the bike actually. And that is just how comfortable this bike is to ride. Not only is it has it got a really comfy seat, it's nice and wide and nice and padded, but you've got tremendous weather protection here. It's got this massive screen on here which is electrically adjustable, and it's got a big old frontal area on the bike as well, and that means when you're tooling along it keeps all the weather off you. So it's comfortable from a riding position point of view, the seat's comfortable and the weather protection. So number 5 on my list is just the comfort that this thing provides you. It's really is a nice place to be. Okay, to number 4 on my list then are the top 5 things that I love about the Triumph Tiger 1200. One of the things about owning a motorcycle, which is slightly different to owning a car, is the fact that you do have to tend to them a little bit. They don't just, you know, you can't just park them up, leave them through winter, drive them, park them up, maybe clean them once in a while and that's it. You do have to give a little bit of maintenance to them. And one of the bugbears of owning and running a motorcycle is the fact that you have to clean the chain all the time. So number 4 on my list of the top 5 things I love about the Triumph Tiger 1200 is the fact that it's got a shaft drive on it. It means no chain maintenance. Not only that, it gives a really positive feel to the powertrain as well. And of course, if you are going off-road, you're out and about, you're exploring, the shaft drive, you could argue, is possibly more reliable than a chain if you're going to get a lot of crud thrown up at the bike. So as an off-road proposition, it does mean that the shaft drive, I think, is a slightly better option. And there aren't that many of these big old adventure bikes now that have them. Of course the BMW is a shaft drive, but the big KTMs, they're all train driven. So top marks to Triumph for making the 1200 Tiger a shaft drive machine. So that's number 4 on my list. The top 5 things I love is the fact that the bike's got a shaft drive. An absolute winner for this sort of bike, I think, and quite unusual actually in the field, as I say. So moving up the list then to number 3 on my top 5 things that I love about the Triumph Tiger 1200, and that is just the sheer volume of electronics that has been thrown at this bike. It's got all the latest of everything. At the moment, for example, it's quite a cold day, so I've got the heated seat turned on. It's keeping my backside lovely and warm. But not only does it have practical things like the heated seat and the heated grips, but it also has, just as I say, every bit of modern day bike electronics thrown at it. So it's got lean angle sensitive ABS, it's got traction control of course, it's got cruise control, it's got lean sensitive lighting, so it lights more when you turn a corner, it's got USB charging points, it's got backlit controls. Just the way they've done the electronics on this, not forget of course the LED lights and the running lights as well, and the additional auxiliary lights on the front, and also of course the TFT screen. How could I forget that? I mean, just the overall electronics package, both in terms of what the bike has plus what it's got in terms of kind of rider safety aids, is just a massive thing on this bike. And Triumph have really stepped up to the mark and thrown everything at this machine for the 2018 model. So that's number 3 on my list of the top 5 things I love about the Triumph Tiger 1200, and that's the electronics package. Hello chaps. Look like a bit of rider training. And a straggler. Howdy. Oh my word. It's actually a cycle event by the looks of it. This is a very popular spot for cycling, it has to be said. It's very rare that I come along this road and don't come across cyclists. But I can't say as I've seen that many before in one go. Okay, so to number 2 on my list, we get into the serious stuff now, the top 5 things I love about the Triumph Tiger 1200. Let me demonstrate it to you now. I'll just drop down a couple of cogs. and it's that, the engine on this bike. It's absolutely beautiful. They've done a really nice job. They've made something like 100 odd changes to the engine, I think I read somewhere. And it absolutely, when you get the revs up high, it sounds fantastic, and it being a triple means it's nice and smooth. Be a little bit careful here because there might be more bikes coming. So I'm a massive fan of triple engines generally on motorcycles, and this one is just beautiful. It pulls like a train, it's smooth, and if you get the revs up high, it does sound nice. When I did the initial review of the bike, I said that I didn't think the engine sounded that good, but that's because I was riding it fairly docilely and hadn't really cranked the throttle open. But once you do start to tap into you know, anything over above 7,000 RPM, and suddenly she comes alive, and absolutely beautiful power plant on this. So I do love the Triumph triples. They know what they're doing when it comes to these sort of engines. So that's number 2 on my list of the top 5 things I love about the Triumph Tiger, and that's its big old 1215cc triple engine. It really is a lovely, lovely power plant. Being a little careful around these roads because there's a little bit of dampness around. We had some rain overnight, and the roads are quite slippery. But again, coming back to that electronics package that I mentioned earlier, things like the traction control and the lean sensitive ABS are all there to help you out. So it makes for a, you know, you can't get a safer bike than something like this to ride. Although of course at some point physics will always take over, so you can't abuse it, but it's nice to have those things there. Okay, we've come to the top of the list then. Cue the drum roll, because we've come to number 1 on my top 5 things that I love about the Triumph Tiger 1200, and that's something that really did surprise me when I first got on the bike. I've ridden quite a few of these big old adventure bikes. They're all quite heavy, of course, and they all have their own pluses and minuses, but certainly for me, one of the things that is absolutely brilliant about the Tiger 1200, over and above things like the Ducati Multistrada and the GS and the KTM Adventures and Super Adventures, is the handling on this thing. It's just absolutely sublime. For a bike that is actually quite heavy and quite top heavy, the handling on it is absolutely beautiful. Now I'm not thrashing it around these corners because, as I say, it is damp, but once she's on the move, she feels much, much lighter than a bike of this size has any right to do. You can really hustle it along if you want to. The semi-active suspension works a treat, adjusting the suspension 50 times a second as you ride along. It makes for a beautiful ride, yet the handling is still really positive. You really understand what the bike is doing with the road. So that's number 1 on my list of the top 5 things I love about the Tiger 1200. That's just its sublime handling. Far, far better than you would expect of a bike of this size and weight. Actually, if we could have another number 1 to the list, I'd add on the quick shifter. And the auto blipper works really well on here. It's a really nice implementation that they've done on the bike. So maybe there's 2 number 1s to this list anyway. So there then is the top 6 things that I love about the Triumph Tiger. Really been riding the pants off the bike the last few days, and yeah, growing to appreciate its finer points, of which there are many. So if you're interested in these bikes, you want to learn more, then stick around and stay tuned to the channel, because I'm going to be doing some more videos on this bike, including my grand finale of the time that I've had this bike, which will be my long-term review of the bike, where I'll go through in detail all the pros and cons of the bike. I'll try it in different road conditions. I'll ride it at night, I'll ride it in rain, slow roads, fast roads, and just really give you my final summary on what I think of this bike. So if you're interested in the bike, as I say, stick around and stay tuned. But that's all for another time. Until then, this has been the Mr. Fly. Cheerio.